we now are going to listen to a presentation from the Kenyan delegation. I would like to invite to the podium Mr. Jonathan Mueke, the Honorable Principal Secretary of the State Department for Livestock Development in Kenya, to make the presentation. Thank you very much.
Excellency Ambassadors, colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. As you've heard, my name is Jonathan Mueke, Principal Secretary in the Ministry of Agriculture and Livestock Production in the Republic of Kenya, specifically looking after the Livestock Development State Department. I am joined here with me as we do our investment proposal with our ambassador to Italy, FAO, and WFP and IFAD, Ambassador Jacqueline and her team. We are also joined here leading our counties, Governor of Taita Taveta, His Excellency Andrew Mwadime. We're also joined here by a member of my technical team who's in charge of animal feeds, Dr. Mutua. We are joined here also by the FAO country director and her team, Madam Carla. And last and not least, we are joined by a team from our crops development State Department. Madam Mary is also here with us. So that is the Kenyan delegation. Our presentation today will focus on the animal feed industry, which is what we as a country have identified to be integral to the development of agriculture and specifically livestock in Kenya. Why Kenya? We are the third largest economy in sub-Saharan Africa, so our economy is pretty stable. We have a good GDP rate and also an acceptable GDP per capita. We boast of a very liberal free market economy. Our market is solely driven by demand and supply. With that, we allow repatriation with no conditions of profits and capital. We guarantee our investors their investment through a very fair and independent judicial system, as well as provide a good market for investors' services and products. We provide special purpose investment entities, so if you're specialized and you need some sort of special purpose vehicle, our government is able to design that for you and allow the registration of the same. We pride ourselves as the digital hub of Africa. We are very well connected with a 5G network that covers most parts of our country, with a fiber network for internet connectivity that connects our country to the rest of the world with very, very high bandwidth rates, and also with several free public Wi-Fi hotspots around public areas like markets and bus stops and towns to ensure that we are constantly connected to the world. On the digital space, we also pride ourselves in innovation, especially in fintechs. As many of you might know, we do have our M-Pesa mobile transfer money system that has shown to be the most innovative in the world when it comes to mobile transfer. Our most valuable resource in our country is our labor force. We have a very young, educated, English-speaking labor force that is entrepreneurial and an excellent foundation for investment promotion in our country. Just last year, we showed the most interest in venture capitalist attraction in all of Africa, while most of our emerging markets in Africa had stagnated in terms of attractiveness for venture capitalist funds. So it means that there's a huge opportunity for investment in our country. And we are also strategically located in the eastern part of Africa with access to two major international ports, one in Lamu and one in Mombasa. We are the gateway to the entire East Africa community. A few statistics about our country. Population about 51 million people. Our GDP is about 110 billion US dollars. Our agricultural GDP is about 20% of our GDP, which is $21.2 billion. Our poverty rate stands around 34%. And in terms of food security, we are 83% food secure. Our development policy as a country is known as Vision 2030, where we endeavor and aspire to be in the upper middle class status by the year 2030. To do that, we strive for 10% annual GDP growth. We have picked agriculture as our key economic driver. We'd like to triple agricultural trade regionally, continentally, and globally, halve our levels of poverty, and build inclusive and resilient food systems. To note, we also pride ourselves with regional and continental blocks. So we belong to the East Africa community, which gives an access of about 500 million people in East Africa. 7 countries are currently in the East Africa community, Kenya being the largest economy of those 7. And we also champion the Africa Free Trade Agreement, where we are opening up the African market of about 1.4 billion people to investors. Kenya's 5th administration, which is now just a year old, has an agenda of bottom-up economic transformation. Our president, His Excellency Dr. William Ruto, has a vision of ensuring that we put money in the pockets of our citizens right from the bottom up. And with that, our country has identified 5 priorities to ensure that we can implement this agenda. It is a medium-term plan agenda, and we hope to achieve this agenda by the year 2027. Some of the investments we are making in aid to implement the bottom-up economic transformation agenda is by focusing on micro, small, and medium enterprises. Our country is making major investments by ensuring that we attract and endeavor to have our small and micro, medium enterprises into the financial system. We have launched a Hustler Fund that is driving business at a very micro level to provide capital for our young entrepreneurs to start and grow their businesses. Housing and settlement is another intervention which does not only cater to ensuring that we have affordable housing for all our citizens so that they can live decent lives and livelihoods. but also as a major driver of jobs, specifically construction jobs and construction materials. Healthcare is very important to us as a nation, and we are progressively moving towards universal healthcare. We've made several investments as a country through community health volunteers to ensure that we move our country's strategy from curative to preventative health and ensure that any one of our citizens who has health challenges is able to get treatment or interventions for their health universally at no cost on their own. So our country is making major investments in healthcare because we do realize that our biggest resource is our human resource, and for us to be productive, our citizens need to be healthy. I did mention earlier about our digital skills and our digital strategy. We have digitized now 80% of our government, which means that you can interact with the Kenyan government from anywhere around the world across any digital device. We also are investing in the creative economy to ensure that as we build digital skills for our young population, they can be able to create content and plug in to the rest of the globe, and also attract, be able to have access to opportunities financially, globally through the internet. Last but not least, which is our number one priority in terms of our bottom-up economic transformation agenda, is agricultural transformation. With this, we have taken as a country a value chain strategy or a value chain approach, whereby we are looking at the entire value chain through our agricultural systems, right from production to value addition to access or route to market. So we do work as a whole of government approach, ensuring that all government ministries are working throughout the value chain and breaking all the silos to ensure that we are able to create opportunities for global and local investors just through one single channel of specific value chains. We're here today having picked as a country an input into our production of animal feed transformation, and that is the presentation that we will be making here today and showing you and the rest of the world the opportunities we have in this sub-industry of animal feed, which is a major input to the production of many of our value chains, such as dairy, such as meat, such as leather, and various different crops such as pyrethrum and tea and cotton and so on. Our agenda when it comes to agriculture within the bottom-up economic transformation agenda is around innovative, commercially oriented where are we? I think I might be missing a slide somewhere. Innovative, commercially oriented agriculture, increased access to market, land use transformation, where we are looking at all the idle government land and opening it up for investors to come and invest in this sector of agriculture. Increasing productivity of key food value chains, reducing dependence on basic food imports, which means we strive to do a lot of the production locally and reduce the imports, especially importing goods and products that we can manufacture or produce locally. And of course, adding value to agricultural imports. This for us is really a paradigm shift and a game changer for our economy, where we are now focusing on exporting finished agricultural products, which we have added value on, and not just raw materials. And then within the livestock sector, we are focusing on the development of arid and semi-arid lands. Our agriculture sector overview We contribute about 21% to our national GDP. Agriculture contributes about 65% to all of Kenya's exports. We employ 40% of our population in the agricultural sector. And out of our rural population, which is 80% of our overall population, we employ 70% in agriculture. Our drivers of livestock production and productivity: milk, we have a demand of about 10.5 billion liters annually. For meat, we have a demand of 1.6 million metric tons, and eggs about 8.9 billion eggs by 2030. Livestock contribution to GDP is about 12%. We value add about 42% of it, and about 50% of all agricultural jobs are created through livestock production. This is our population of livestock as per 2022 statistics. You will see cattle, we have about 14.3 million cattle, 4.5 million being dairy animals, about 26.7 million goats, 18.9 million sheep, 44.6 million poultry, 0.5 million pigs, 1.9 million donkeys, and 3.2 million camels. While we are working on the livestock subsector, we have options for improving our livestock production and productivity. Our livestock transformation agenda centers really around farm management, technical advisory model, where we are saying that we do have enough head of cattle to be able to produce and meet the demand that we need to meet by 2030. What we need to do is up the productivity. And to do that, we have an agenda of ensuring that we have technical support to our farmers and our farm management. Word cooperative model, we use cooperatives to aggregate all our products as we take them for value addition and access to the market. 80% of our livestock farmers are smallholder farmers, so it is important to come up with a strategy where we aggregate all our livestock and livestock products through cooperatives so that we can collectively be able to meet the market demands. We have a strategy of a feedlot model in our arid and semi-arid areas, whereby once we aggregate our cattle, we can take them to the feedlots in which we are able to fatten them and make our animals disease-free, have quarantine areas that would then make us attractive as a country to overseas markets. We have a specific interest in our dairy value chain, which we are developing, not just to increase our production for milk from the current 5 billion liters to the 10-point-something billion liters that you've seen here, but we also want to value add our dairy products into milk, milk powder, cheese, yogurt, ghee, and other milk-related products. Currently, we boast as a country as being the #1 dairy producer in Africa, and now we want to expand that into value-added, quality value-added goods that we can export. We also have a developing beef value chain where we export both cold carcasses, processed meat, and live animals. An indigenous chicken market is also there, and we develop that amongst our smallholder farmers, and a leather value chain in which we ensure that we utilize the raw materials in terms of hides and skins to process those into leather through our tanneries, and finally into finished goods such as belts and handbags and shoes. Drivers of our livestock agenda, we have 4 main inputs to ensure that we can increase productivity in our livestock agenda. Number 1 is genetics, animal breeding. We are constantly, through our Animal Genetics Research Center, looking for hardy breeds, for breeds that are fit for purpose for our country, breeds that would produce optimally in the geographic location where we are in and in our arid and semi-arid lands. Animal feeds is also a major input for us, and that is why it is a focal area that we are discussing today. We estimate our cost of production for livestock and livestock products, almost 50 or 60% of it is in animal feeds. So we are looking on ways to ensure that we can make that area a little more efficient. Animal husbandry, which encapsulates animal health, is also very, very important input for us when it comes to increase of production through vaccination, through cattle dips, through ensuring that we just have good animal husbandry and animal comfort, which then creates an environment for our animals to produce optimally. And of course, legislative and policy environment. Our government is continuously evolving in ensuring that we review or create new laws, regulations, policies to help keep up with the world and also grow our livestock sector. Opportunities and challenges in the animal feeds scenario or area. Production is our biggest opportunity because of the growing human population, the demand for animal protein that will come with us, and the national economic growth that is ensuring a lot of our population getting into the middle class or lower middle class areas whereby they can afford animal protein creates a huge demand for our animal products. With that, of course, then comes in the importance of also animal feed to be able to increase that productivity. The feed challenges we currently have as a country, which we are here in Rome to find partners and investors to help us solve these challenges, is that we are currently at a 60% deficit, annual deficit in animal feed, which means that we are now importing a lot of animal feed within our ecosystem so that we can increase our animal production. What that is doing to us as a country, it is increasing our cost of production and it makes us uncompetitive. It makes our products uncompetitive in the regional, continental, and global markets. Out of the 40% animal feed that we produce, we are losing about 46.3% of it to post-harvest losses. So that is also another area that is a challenge for us, and of course will be an opportunity to many of you in this room. Low mechanization and transport connectivity is also a challenge for us. High cost of feed inputs, I mentioned as an input for animal production or livestock production, 60 to 80% of the total cost of production is feed. And then we are also importing a lot of protein ingredients. So, where do we want to go? Or what is our plan as a country? We've strategically come up with an investment plan to close our gap of 60% feed deficiency in our country. We have identified these feed resources, about 10 of them, as you can see in the green table, the amount of feed that we need and the amount of land that we need to grow that feed as key strategic interventions to solve our deficit in animal feed. On the graphic to my right, we do have public sector and private sector interventions. We estimate to solve our entire deficiency in the animal feed, we need a value proposition or investment of about 3.4 billion US dollars. From the public sector, as in government, we are constantly through our livestock master plan and other statistics that we continuously collect from our farmers. We collect data and information so that we ensure that all the decisions and interventions that we make in this sector are data-driven. We provide policy instruments, our laws, our regulations, our strategies like our agricultural transformation strategy and other strategies we have in growing that sector in our country. We constantly create those and review them to ensure that we are keeping up with global trends. And then, of course, we provide infrastructure as government so that this sector can thrive. We then call on the private sector, agribusiness actors, financial institutions, local and international investors, and other stakeholders to plug in by providing the different inputs that we need for our livestock production, to develop or grow fodder, pasture and fodder seeds, do post-harvest handling. You've seen we lose about 50% or thereabouts of our produced animal feed. So we need to mechanize that to ensure that we don't lose that. Provide markets or route to markets for the products that we produce. And of course, research and development to ensure that we are producing optimally for our geographic location and producing also what the market really needs. Out of those 10 investment areas, our government or our country has prioritized 7 as a starting point to ensure that we move along towards decreasing our deficiency in animal feed. I do have a table there that just shows the priorities are in hay production, sunflower production, hay mechanization, sunflower oil pressing, feedlots, slaughterhouses, digitization, which is the livestock identification and digitization system, traceability system, and all of that out of the $3.4 billion of aggregate investment that we need. We're prioritizing $2 billion to start with. That will benefit directly and indirectly about 1.273 million people. Another summary of our country level priority areas of investment. Our target again is $2 billion for agriculture and food system transformation. Number of beneficiaries is there. We are depending on donors, impact investors, and governments to come and catalyze that investment so that we can move along a little faster. And of course, as government, we will give a lot of investment facilitation and services to make sure that we attract investors to come in and help us with some of these issues. We have a one-stop investment services center, which provides business registration, tax registration, issuance of all licenses that we need to operate in Kenya and permits, immigration services, visas and immigration permits for investors to come in if they're foreign investors, processing of other regulatory issues like environmental impact assessments, connectivity to infrastructural things like water, roads, power. We're able to facilitate that as government and also fast track the same, and also give any advisory state services on other statutory requirements that investors might need to make sure that their investment experience in our country is seamless. We have partnered with FAO and the Hand in Hand initiative on our animal feed strategy or agenda. And with that, we are prioritizing areas that have high medium agricultural potential and medium moderate efficiency so that we can attract market-led investments, enhance agricultural productivity, provide a process to implement the investments, strengthen the institutional environment, and consider all positive and negative areas that we need to consider so as to be able to produce the amount of animal feed that we need to produce. We are focusing specifically on the arid and semi-arid areas because it constitutes 80% of our land mass. So we have a huge area of land that we can use to drive this agenda, which is 36% of our population. The impact is huge for our people. 70% of all our livestock is in the arid and semi-arid areas in Kenya. So that is also, again, an area where we can create impact very quickly by focusing on those areas. 80% of all households in the arid and semi-arid areas depend on livestock. These are pastoralists and other livestock stakeholders who 80% of the population in these arid and semi-arid areas depends really on this livestock industry. There is high poverty rates there, so it is very much in line with our bottom-up economic transformation agenda, where we will be transforming our economy, putting money in the pockets of our citizens right from the bottom coming up. So that is why it's a priority area for us. Has high food insecurity and also GAM rates, which is malnutrition rates of about 69%. So we could use our livestock products as intervention for malnutrition. You can see here we have several tax incentives and investment incentives to ensure that we can attract investors into our country. I'll go through them very quickly. A 10-year corporate tax holiday, 10-year withholding tax holiday, 100% investment deduction on new investment. This is to attract new investors. Perpetual exemption from payment of stamp duty on legal instruments. Perpetual exemption of VAT and customs import duty on imports. Operation under essentially one license issued by our export processing zones. Rapid project approval and licensing, so our Kenya Investment Authority is able to fast track all your licensing. No exchange controls. We have a completely liberalized foreign exchange market, and you can repatriate your profits or your capital at will. Online customs documentation and inspection by customs staff, so our customs comes to you to inspect any of your goods that you've produced and you'd like to export. Unrestricted investment by foreigners. We do not restrict foreign investment. We encourage as much foreign direct investment as you would like to bring into our country. A one-stop shop service for facilitation and aftercare for investors through our, again, investment promotion institutions and organizations, and quality infrastructure for lease. I mentioned a little earlier, we have a lot of land that is government-owned, that the government is getting into leasing agreements with private investors at very concessional rates so that we can attract investment into our country, as, of course, that plugs directly into our economic transformation agenda. I'd like to now go into arguably the most important part of our presentation, which are investment clusters. We have picked 6 investment clusters that would like to attract investors to come in and invest in the animal feed area. Number one is production hubs for modular hay production. So we have a total investment outlay of about $129 million. This is to invest in hay production. We are looking to get 11 of those, each at about $11 million, with an internal rate of return of 21%, which is pretty high, and a positive net present value of about $6.4 million. I will go to the summary of that. I know we are running out of time. We aim to produce almost 27 million bales per year, which will benefit about 92,400 people. Benefits for farmers will be 50% reduction on feed cost if we do this to the scale we are thinking about, higher incomes for our farmers, 50% reduction in malnutrition, and of course, 20% import substitution. The second one is around investment in sunflower production, where we are looking at a total outlay of about $4.7 million, where we want 9 modular sunflower production hubs, each hub with an outlay of about $528,000, which is about $500,000, with a 23% internal rate of return and a net present value positive, of course, of about $346,000. With this, again, there's a huge benefit in 50% reduction in malnutrition, 20% import substitution, and in total, it will benefit about 9,180 people. We will produce 9,450 metric tons of sunflower seeds per year. So a huge investment opportunity there, as you can see, with very, very good investment returns. Number 3 is around mechanization of the hay hubs that I mentioned earlier, where we have a total investment outlay of about $21.4 million US, targeting about 30,000 hectares of hay. We have identified 3 regions that we want to pilot that, Kajiado, Mueke, and Taita Taveta. That is why our governor from Taita Taveta is here with us today, as well as a representative of the governor from Kajiado, to ensure that they give you assurance of their county government's ability to invite you to their counties to invest in this. This investment will help us produce about 1.8 million bales of hay per year, with the total beneficiaries of about 30,000 people. Each of those modular hay mechanization hubs will have an investment outlay of about $428,000 US dollars. Number 4 is investment in sunflower oil pressing and sunflower cake milling. Here we are looking for 4 modular 10.5 million metric ton of seed per year sunflower pressing, with an investment outlay of about $2 million. Would like to establish about 4 of those sunflower seed processing plants. Again, we have identified Kajiado, Mueke, and Taita Taveta as the counties where we want to pilot those. We will produce 10.5 metric tons of sunflower seeds per year and benefit more than 29,000, nearly 30,000 beneficiaries. Each one of those 4 oil pressing and sunflower cake milling plants has an investment outlay of about $500,000 US. Number 5 is around feedlots, where we are looking at 60 modular feedlots with a total investment outlay of about $244,000 US. We spoke about feedlots a little earlier, which are very important as our finishing or fattening areas and quarantine zones for our livestock, especially those that are going out for export. Each of those with an outlay of about 4,740 US dollars, with an IRR of 20% and a positive NPV of about $262,000. This will guarantee a livestock market for our cattle through the demand, huge demand we have for our livestock products, both continentally and globally. We also do have, as part of our value addition, so not just export of live animals, but the cold carcasses and the processed meats. Would like to present an opportunity to invest in a slaughterhouse, which is one modular slaughterhouse at about 771 US dollars, which will be able to have a throughput of 26,000 cattle per year. Again, we've identified 3 areas where we could possibly make this investment: the counties of Kajiado, Makueni, and Taita Taveta, with direct benefits of about 470 people, an IRR of 21%, and an NPV of 417,000 US dollars. Again, a very good investment with an acceptable rate of return and a positive NPV. Last but not least is in our digital arena around livestock identification and traceability, where we would like to present an opportunity to invest in an RFID cattle traceability system, which will target about 18 million of our cattle, so that we can tag them and ensure that we're able to trace our livestock products all the way from farm to fork. We've identified pilot counties, again, 3 of them that we'll focus on in this hand-in-hand initiative of Kajiado, Makueni, and Taita Taveta. This will benefit about 200,000 livestock keepers and feedlot operators in our arid and semi-arid lands. This investment, ladies and gentlemen, has an internal rate of return of 24% and a net present value of $3.8 million. As I conclude my presentation, this is really the next steps for feeds investment, animal feeds investment in Kenya. In the middle there, you can see our annual feed demand of 55 metric tons. Out of that, 50% of it will be cultivated pasture, fodder, and concentrates. The other 50% is really just around fodder and pasture around our rangelands. We are here presenting an investment outlay of 164 million US dollars, which will just contribute around 11% of our entire deficit, or the gap that we want to close. This is a pilot that we are doing with FAO under the hand-in-hand initiative. Out of the $3.4 billion, then we will get our 100% contribution from that. We have prioritized $2 billion, as you saw before, and we are starting with $164 million, which is just about 11% of our total need. This is a quick summary that I'm sure you'll be able to get from our presentation of the entire outlay along the 3 clusters of feed production systems: the hay production, the mechanization and value addition, which is on our hay baling, sunflower processing, slaughterhouse and feedlots, and then our digitization and digitalization with our livestock identification and traceability systems. So I thank you for listening to the presentation, and I'm looking forward to interacting with all of you and answering any of your queries as we bid for investment for livestock production in our country. Thank you very much. Asanteni sana.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I would like you to join us here at the panel, and thank you very much for the presentation, Mr. Mueke. I would like also to ask Mr. Andrew Madine, His Excellency the Governor of Taveta County, to join us here at the podium, as well as Mr. Jackson Achola, a County Executive Member of the Agriculture and Livestock Department at the Callado County, and Mr. Stanley Mutua, the Head of Feeds Department of Livestock Development in Kenya, so that we can have a very brief question and answer session. As you know, we are running out of time, and you also know that you all have the opportunity to have specific meetings with the delegation. So you can still, if you have not done it yet, go to the website and use it to be able to get your appointments later on today, tomorrow, the day after. We have all the information there in the application. I open the floor now for questions. If there are any questions, please. I see the gentleman from the African Development Bank. Please go ahead.
Yeah, I'm Dr. Damian Ihedioha, Manager for Agribusiness Development of African Development Bank. The bank has a very huge foothold in Kenya, and we have done several things with them. But the collaboration has not ended, it will continue. I am happy that the government is coming up with this perspective plan, for the transformation of the country. Beyond making this presentation, it is also very, very important, and I want to underscore that, it's very, very important that you take this very important message within government circles, because during project preparation and during negotiation for funding in countries, Ministry of Agriculture is usually not as strong as it should be in forcing through some of these issues that are very transformative in nature. We leave the Ministry of Infrastructure, other things, to take a stronger foothold within government. And then this issue, which is very, very important, and which is at the heart of transformation of Kenya, is not given adequate attention within government. So I would think that the advocacy role you need to play within government to convince the Ministry of Finance to make those request letters to development, to financing institutions to take this important project is very, very key. So I thought you should take that to heart. Number two is I saw three components. Perhaps during the review of these components, you could see that digitalization and digitalization are conduit to implementing component 1 and component 2. They may not stand on their separate footings, but one would advise that going forward, you use component 3 to achieve component 1 and 2, which becomes an activity within component 1 and 2. The third comment I need to make is with respect to beneficiaries. I don't know whether those beneficiaries you identified there are family or households or individuals. If they are households, if you look at the issue of sunflower processing, you are going to invest about $190-something million, and then the beneficiary is at only 6,000 something people. If you do the economics, it doesn't give you so much returns that only 6,000 something people are benefiting from a project that's going to cost government $190-something million dollars. So you may have to look at that and then get the target beneficiaries very, very well. It also applies to other projects you have identified, so that you can have a cogent reason to convince government and Ministry of Finance to make a requisition for those resources. There are other issues we can talk on that, but I'm sure we can discuss bilaterally by the time we meet outside this session. I thought I should bring issues on the table. Thank you.
Thank you very much for doing that. As we did before, I'd also like to collect other questions so that we can address them all at the same time. So I will invite other questions. Yes, please take the floor.
Thank you very much, moderator. My name is Mohammed Bakar. I work with the Global Environment Facility Secretariat. Really excellent overview. Kenya just hosted the first Africa Climate Summit, and it was really good to see some explicit targets with respect to emission benefits that will emerge from these investments. I was just wondering, from the overall transformation perspective, to what extent is the agriculture sector being specifically targeted for maximizing these global environment benefits? Because Kenya is also one of the most important countries for its wildlife and land use related to pastoral communities. So I'm just wondering, how is the approach internalizing these other important priorities to ensure that the whole of a government approach is reflected in your, mirroring the concept of hand in hand, that it's also happening hand in hand with other ministries. Thank you.
Thank you very much for the excellent questions. And I would like then now to ask the delegation who would like to start addressing those questions. Please go ahead.
Okay, thank you for the questions. Allow me to start with the comment on beneficiaries. Yes, at its elementary level, the number of beneficiaries may appear too small because we have calculated this across the levels, like at unit level, at modular level, and at country level. Two, the number of beneficiaries again range from direct beneficiaries, indirect beneficiaries, as well as service providers. So depending on the level or the scale of analysis, then the number may look small, but if we want to grow it up to the modular level, we expect to benefit directly, indirectly, and even more service providers in that analysis. How was this arrived at in terms of number of beneficiaries? We were guided by economists on how many number of indirect, the number of the ratio of direct and indirect beneficiaries depending on the enterprise. I can also comment on, allow me to comment on, there's on climate. It's on climate benefits. Yeah, it is true that Kenya hosted the Africa Climate Summit recently. And the concern here is, how do we wish to integrate this hand-in-hand undertaking into the overall country environmental benefit? Three things. One, when you look at our prioritized case studies, elsewhere we have mentioned hay mechanization. For example, when you establish hay or a pasture, it will take between 5 to 8 years before you open that land again. So that alone is a positive contribution to climate smart agriculture. And then two, when it comes to feedlot or even slaughter, one of the areas that will work around is organic fertilizer, organic manure from the case or investment case of a slaughterhouse. Another area of climate benefit, or rather environmental benefit, is under the feedlot. Since Kenya has prioritized feed production and value addition, we project to feed our livestock better, harvest them not after 9 months, but after 6 months because of proper quality feeding that will leave us with about 3 months, which would have gone into methane emission. So the equivalent of that reduction, again, presents the country and this investment in hand with the significant environmental benefit. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Maybe just before closing, I would also like to add that we are very much aware of the environmental impact, of course, of the livestock sector. In fact, in this moment, FAO and the Investment Center in particular is engaged supporting IFAD in finding ways to decrease emissions from the livestock sector, and is preparing a project for the Green Climate Fund. And I see some of the people involved here also in the room. So I'm sure that you can also learn more from these and other similar initiatives. And please, I don't see any raised hands. I see one, but before giving the floor, that will be the last question. The other questions that you might have, I will encourage you, please, to take appointments with the delegation that is here for that purpose, and we'll be very glad to meet any of you that make further appointments. Please, take the floor.
Thank you. My name is Emmanuel Ansam Profi, and I work for a company, I'm a co-founder of Trotro Tractor and Buy Africa Made. My question is this, we've had a lot of good products from Kenya. I'm a Ghanaian, but I'm based in Nigeria. And there's a huge need for dairy products in West Africa. How are you using AFTA to tackle this shortage in West Africa, thereby also creating a lot of value chain for Kenyan farmers? I must be frank, the best sausage I've ever taken is Farmer's Choice in Kenya. I do enjoy that one a lot. And it's the first place that I ever saw milk ATM. How would you bring such product into West Africa between Ghana and Nigeria? And equally, how are you bringing along youth in this project? Because the farmer age in Africa is an issue. Colors and all will not do it. So how are you bringing mechanization and then pulling along the youth in getting this done? Thank you.
Thank you very much. And I will invite you then for a brief response, please.
Thank you. I'm Andrew Modime, governor of one of the counties which has been chosen for this piloting program. You know, I want just to talk a little bit on these counties which are chosen as a pilot. They are vast counties with a big landmass, and they are in one area, Kajiado, Taita Taveta, and Makueni, where already this pastoralism and animal keeping is already ongoing. And all of them, they are just neighbors of the biggest national park in East and Central Africa called Tsavo West and Tsavo East. And as per one of the asked a question on how is it going to benefit also plus you as the youth. This activity, because it's been ongoing, but on a very primitive way, and it was working very well. With the FAO and our government, the way our peers have said, it can really boost the animal. Because like you have heard our peers have said, leather industries, the milk, and also environmentally, because as it is right now, a good example, this year around February, there was a rain which came in one of the areas for only 35 minutes. And we have stayed for about 4 years without rain. When it came, the rains came, it almost killed about 8 people because the soil was bare. But with this feeding program, and the grass will be there, it will actually kill very many birds with one stone. Me, as the beneficiary of this program, our youth are the most going to be affected because jobs will be created for them, and the milk production will also increase, the meat production, because all these are areas, as our peers said, they're used for also fattening, where you keep a very tiny animal, 3 to 6 months, it becomes like a buffalo, which means it will add lots of meat, and at the same time, on leather industry, it can be there. So in all directions, this project, it will really benefit those 3 counties, and then later on, it will now be spread all over the country. So to me, any investor who will be interested, because in terms of network is there, in terms of infrastructure, it is there. In fact, when you talk about the leather industry, some areas, we are next to about only 78 kilometers to the port. We have an SGR railway, we have good tarmac roads. So actually, the government here is in the right direction.
Thank you very much. Thank you for that. And as I say, if you have further questions, please do not hesitate to take an appointment with the delegation. That still there is time on the schedule. And I would like to invite again for closing remarks. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I'll just touch very quickly on regional trade. I mentioned a little earlier that our government has taken a value chain approach, production, value addition, and route to market. With route to market, our country has made very, very specific interventions. We have at the tail end of concluding the European Partnership Agreement, which has opened up the 27 countries in Europe to products and services from Kenya. Under negotiations right now is the US-Kenya trade agreement that is at an advanced stage, that again is going to open up the US market to Kenya's products and services. We are also at the tail end of concluding the Gulf Cooperation, GCC cooperation with Kenya. That also opens up now the Middle East to Kenyans' goods and product. We have a huge demand of especially meat, like meat value chain products from the Middle Eastern countries. Continentally, we have the East African community, in which we are very vibrant and have pretty much a lot of non-tariff barriers on those, and the Africa Free Trade Agreement that you have seen our president championing. So we are opening up our route to market as a country because of our strategy of increase of production and a specific strategy of export of Kenyan goods and services. So for the gentleman from Nigeria, we are going to be taking advantage of the Africa Free Trade, Continental Free Trade Agreement to ensure that we can trade with Nigeria. I actually do have an MOU between Kenya and Nigeria on dairy products. All we are working on now is the competitiveness to ensure that our products can be competitive for your market. And that is why this animal feed is a priority for us, because if we're able to crack large-scale investment in animal feed, then we will be able to bring down the cost of production and be competitive. As I conclude, I'd just like to thank all of you for taking time to listen to the Kenyan presentation. Our priorities and our goals for our time out here in Rome is, number one, to partner, identify, and link up with investors, foreign investors who would like to come and invest with in agricultural systems or any other kind of investments in our country. Our team is ready and willing to speak with you further on that. Number two, funding for our local investors through the development organizations, through foundations, through commercial institutions, through the international finance organizations like ADB. Would like to listen to the products that you have that can also help our local investors get financing to be able to enhance their entrepreneurial endeavors and also be able to tap into this agenda. So we are still here for the rest of the week. We have a strong team from Kenya that will be able to answer all your questions and give you the way forward on how it is that you can engage with our government and come and invest in our country. Thank you very much. Asanteni sana.
Thank you very much to you. And I would like to then thank you all for your attention and remind you that we will start again at 2 o'clock with Malawi. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you very much. Very kind of you.